They say the world doesn't belong to the strongest or the wisest, but to those who burn, to those who carry within them a fire that never goes out. That fire has a name: burning desire. It's not a simple want, it's not a passing whim, it's an invisible engine that makes some rise again and again, even when everyone expects them to give up. It's the force that makes unstoppable those who dare to ignite it. This book is not made for those seeking comfort. It's made for those willing to ignite themselves, to discover within their interior the flame that neither fear nor doubt nor failure can extinguish. Get ready, because once you light this fire, your life will never be the same again. Chapter 1. The Restless Spark. Every fire begins with a spark, so small that many step on it without realizing. But that spark, when protected, has the power to set an entire forest ablaze. This is also how burning desire begins, like a discomfort that seems insignificant, but is actually the first sign that your life is asking for more. That spark doesn't always appear as a grand vision. Sometimes it's a simple unease, a question that won't let you sleep, a silent certainty that you weren't born to repeat routines that don't fulfill you. This is how Joseph's dream was born, the boy from the Bible. His brothers laughed at him, sold him, tried to extinguish his fire, but the spark was already lit. They could tear off his tunic, they could imprison him, they could humiliate him, but they couldn't extinguish what burned inside him. And in the end, that spark led him to govern an entire nation. The same happens today. The immigrant who crosses borders with empty hands and hope in their heart. The mother who, after an exhausting day, studies at night because she knows that degree will be the inheritance for her children. The young person who runs with worn shoes because they dream of a ball that will lift them out of poverty. To the world, they are crazy. To them, they are the spark that keeps them alive. The problem is that most people extinguish that spark before it burns. They smother it with excuses. It's not the right time. I don't have what's necessary. It's too late for me. And then they resign themselves to walking among ashes instead of setting their own destiny ablaze. The unstoppable does the opposite. Protects their spark as if it were a treasure, even if it trembles, even if it seems ridiculous, even if everyone calls them crazy. Because they know that within that spark is the promise of a flame, capable of illuminating their path and perhaps also that of others. Remember this. Never underestimate that discomfort that accompanies you in silence. Never ignore that dream that returns, even though you try to bury it. Never extinguish that emotion that burns without permission, because that restless spark can be the beginning of your unstoppable fire. In the next chapter, you'll discover the language of fire and learn to differentiate between a weak desire that's extinguished by the wind of doubt and a true desire that, even if you try to smother it, always burns again. Chapter 2. The Language of Fire. Not everything that burns is true fire. There are flames that shine bright one moment and the next there's nothing left, like a bonfire of dry papers. Much smoke, little strength. This is also how weak desires are. They ignite with momentary enthusiasm, with the fashion of the instant, with the euphoria of fleeting motivation. But just a wind of doubt, a drop of criticism is enough to extinguish them. Burning desire speaks another language, a language that doesn't understand excuses or applause. Burning desire burns in silence, even when it has no audience, even when it seems not to advance. It's like a dormant volcano. From outside, it seems still, but inside, the lava accumulates, inevitable, unstoppable. Look at Moses. He didn't ask to free anyone. He tried to hide. He even argued with God, saying he didn't know how to speak. But his fire was true. It kept burning, even though he himself wanted to smother it. That is the language of fire. It doesn't depend on what you want to extinguish, but on what you can't stop igniting. The same happens with modern stories. The scientist who fails 100 times in a laboratory but can't stop returning because the fire pushes them beyond error. The musician who keeps playing even though there's no audience because the fire won't let them give up. The entrepreneur who gets up after bankruptcy because their vision keeps burning even though everything collapses. The language of fire isn't pretty words. It's coherence. When someone says, "I want to change my life," but keeps feeding on excuses, their fire doesn't speak. But when someone says little and acts much, there is the true language. That's why it's vital to ask yourself, is my desire a paper flame or volcano fire? If you abandon it, you barely feel resistance. It wasn't burning desire, it was passing emotion. But if it returns again and again, if it wakes you at night, if it hurts not to do it, then you've just recognized the true fire. The unstoppable listens to that language, not the external voices, not the internal doubts, but the constant murmur of their own fire. And when they recognize it, they no longer need motivation, they only need to add more wood. Remember, weak desire asks permission to exist. Burning desire asks for nothing. It speaks with the language of fire, and all of life has to listen to it. In the next chapter, you'll discover the invisible fuel that feeds your flame and what extinguishes it, because it's not enough to ignite. You need to know what wood to keep in your fire and what smoke to avoid if you want to burn without limits. Chapter 3. The invisible fuel. A fire doesn't die because there's no spark. It dies because it lacks nourishment. You can have the biggest vision, the clearest idea, but if you don't know what to feed within you, your desire becomes smoke. The invisible fuel isn't money. It's not luck. It's not even talent. The invisible fuel is the emotions, thoughts, and habits that each day fan your fire or extinguish it. Look at the story of Elijah. After defeating the false prophets, he fell in a cave defeated. He wanted to die. What lifted him? It wasn't an army, it was a gentle voice. It was spiritual nourishment that reignited the flame within him. That is the invisible fuel. What you choose to hear, what you choose to believe, what you choose to keep in your mind and heart. The same happens in everyday life. How many people start a business full of enthusiasm, but at the first criticism they abandon it? They didn't lack spark, they lacked fuel. Criticism became water for their fire because they didn't have conviction to resist. In contrast, the great unstoppable ones use even rejection as wood. Each "you can't" becomes gasoline to prove the opposite. Burning desire isn't fed by comforts, it's fed by purpose. The boxer who trains in darkness while everyone sleeps doesn't do it for pleasure. They do it because their vision of victory burns stronger than fatigue. The immigrant who studies a language until dawn doesn't do it for fun. They do it because the fire of their future is bigger than sleep. And here's the truth. What you repeat in your mind each day is the fuel your fire chooses. If you repeat fear, your flame goes out. If you repeat doubt, your flame drowns. But if you repeat vision, passion, and gratitude, your fire not only survives, it grows. The unstoppable understands that having a spark isn't enough. They care for what they throw on their fire. They care for their words, their thoughts, their environment, because they know that each emotion is wood and each habit is air. And with the right fuel, their desire has no end. Remember, no one fails because they lack spark. They fail because they let their fire die. But whoever knows how to feed their flame, even if they start small, ends up burning so much that nothing and no one can stop them. In the next chapter, you'll discover the guardian of doubt and understand why every time your fire grows, a voice appears that tries to extinguish it, not to destroy you, but to test if your desire is true. Chapter 4. The Guardian of Doubt with Originality. Every time you light a fire, a guardian appears. It doesn't come with a helmet or sword. It comes as doubt. That voice that slips into your mind and says, "What if you're wrong? What if it's not for you?" The guardian isn't an enemy. It's an exam. Imagine a young African athlete who runs barefoot in a dirt field. She has no shoes, no trainer, no track, only the fire of wanting to go farther than anyone. Each stride brings doubt. What if I fall? What if the whole world laughs at me? But she runs anyway. And one day that same girl crosses the finish line in an international competition. She didn't defeat the rivals, she defeated the guardian who shouted at her that she couldn't. Or think of a fisherman who has gone days without finding food. Each morning he hears the guardian, "Stay home. There will be nothing today either." But he goes out anyway, and just that day, the net fills with fish. It wasn't coincidence, It was the reward of crossing through the doubt that wanted to stop him. The guardian always disguises itself as prudence, as sensibility, as logic. It tells you, wait a little more, don't risk what's certain, better stay where you are. But in reality, it's testing your fire. Only those who cross through that voice discover what's behind the door. The unstoppable doesn't waste time arguing with the guardian. They don't ask for permission, they simply take one more step. Even if they tremble, even if they doubt, because they know that on the other side of doubt is the treasure that only the burning ones can touch. Remember, doubt doesn't mean you failed, it means you've already reached the border and those who burn cross. In the next chapter, you'll discover fire and iron, why pain isn't the enemy of the unstoppable, but the forge where their true strength is tempered. Chapter 5. Fire and Iron. Iron in its pure state is soft, it bends easily. It's no good for a sword. Only when it enters the forge, only when it withstands temperatures of over 1,000 degrees, does it transform into steel, resistant, sharp, capable of cutting the impossible. The same occurs with burning desire. If it never goes through trials, if it never crosses through pain, pressure, contradiction, it remains weak, fragile, easy to extinguish. It's fire and iron that make the unstoppable. Science confirms it. The most resistant materials on the planet aren't born that way. They form under extreme pressure. The diamond, for example, is just coal, but the heat and pressure of the earth convert it into the hardest substance we know. Bamboo spends years underground, strengthening invisibly, and suddenly, in weeks, grows entire meters. Biology and physics remind us of the same thing. Resistance forges. Look at Stephen Hawking, diagnosed with ALS at 21 years old. They told him he would live barely 2. The forge was brutal, a body that was shutting down little by little, but his fire was stronger. Instead of giving up, he dedicated himself to studying the universe from a wheelchair. His ideas crossed limits that a healthy body never dared to challenge. Fire and iron turned him into legend. Think of Helen Keller, a girl who became blind and deaf at 2 years old. The iron of adversity seemed invincible, but inside her there was fire. She learned to read, to speak with her hands, to write, to inspire millions. Fire and iron made her unstoppable. Pain isn't a sign that your desire died, it's a sign that it's being tempered. Each rejection, each failure, each fall are hammer blows that shape your sword. The forge doesn't destroy, it transforms. The unstoppable doesn't flee from fire, they enter into it. They don't curse the iron, they embrace it because they understand that each time they withstand the pressure, each time they survive the heat, they become stronger, sharper, more capable of breaking through. Remember this, an iron without forge will never be a sword, and a desire without trials will never be truly burning. In the next chapter, you'll discover discipline, the wind that fans the flame. And you'll understand why it's not enough to be strong in the forge. You need a constant, repetitive air that keeps your fire alive day after day. Chapter 6. Discipline, the wind that fans the flame. A fire can be intense, but if it doesn't receive constant air, it goes out. It doesn't matter how burning it was at its beginning, without oxygen, it dies. The same occurs with desire. The spark can be great, the vision immense, but without discipline, there's no engine that lasts. Discipline is the invisible wind that keeps the flame alive. It's not glamour, it's not inspiration, it's not viral motivation, it's repetition. It's the constant air that feeds your fire, even when no one's watching. Neuroscience explains it. Each time you repeat an action, you create new connections in your brain. At first, they're fragile paths like trails in tall grass. But with daily practice, that trail becomes a highway. Discipline is the air that transforms an impulse into identity. Look at Michael Phelps, the Olympic swimmer. For years he trained every day, including Sundays and Christmas. He didn't swim only when he was motivated. He swam when he was sick, tired, frustrated. His secret wasn't talent, it was the constant air of discipline. That's why his fire never went out, and he ended up being the most decorated athlete in history. But you don't need to look that high. Think of the mother who studies half an hour each night after putting her children to bed, or the worker who saves $1 daily, even though everyone says it's not enough. Those small daily breaths seem insignificant until one day you look back and see an enormous flame that was born from those repeated decisions. Discipline is humble. No one applauds the air, but without air there's no fire. What inspiration ignites in an instant, discipline sustains for years. And there's the difference between those who burn for a moment and those who become unstoppable. The unstoppable doesn't wait to feel motivated to act. They act and motivation comes after. They understand that each repetition is a breath of air that fans the flame, that each sustained day is an investment in their fire, and that what seems boring is actually the most powerful. Remember, fire without air goes out and desire without discipline dies, but with constant wind. Even a small spark can become a bonfire capable of illuminating generations. In the next chapter, you'll discover the magnetism of the burning and learn why true fire not only illuminates, it also attracts, and how science explains that mysterious power of attracting opportunities, people, and results when you truly burn. Chapter 7. The magnetism of the burning. A magnet doesn't make noise, doesn't shout, doesn't run after what it wants to attract. It simply vibrates in silence, and the inevitable occurs. Metal approaches. This is how burning desire works. It's not pursuit, it's attraction. Physics confirms it. Every body with sufficient mass curves the space around it. That's called gravity. Planets don't chase the moon, they hold it in orbit. Your fire works the same way. When you truly burn, your field becomes so intense that people, opportunities, and resources begin to orbit around you. Look at Florence Nightingale in the 19th century. In an era where medicine was dominated by men and plagued with superstitions, her fire to save lives was unstoppable. Doubt and rejection were constant, but her burning made her a magnet. She attracted volunteers, resources, and international support. She ended up revolutionizing nursing and saving thousands of lives in the middle of war. She didn't run after validation, she generated it with the force of her flame. That's the secret. When your desire is lukewarm, you chase. When your desire burns, you attract. It's like fire on a dark night. It doesn't seek anyone. But everyone seeks it because it gives warmth, light, and direction. In neuroscience, this phenomenon is studied under another name, resonance. The mirror neurons in your brain respond to the emotional state of whoever is in front of you. If your fire is real, others feel it in their body before hearing you. That's why there are leaders who raise crowds with few words, because what vibrates in them is stronger than any speech. The magnetism of the burning isn't mysticism, it's coherence. The one who says, "I want," but moves like someone who fears, repels. The one who says little, but acts with certainty, attracts. Your vibration isn't measured in what you declare, it's measured in what you sustain when no one sees you. The unstoppable doesn't run after what they want. They become fire and let the world come close. They understand that magnetism isn't fabricated with phrases, it's built with true burning. Remember, weak desire begs, burning desire magnetizes. And when your fire is strong enough, the impossible has no choice but to come closer to you. In the next chapter, you'll discover the word as spark and understand why fire isn't only felt, it's also declared, and how your words can be gasoline or water for your flame. Chapter 8. The word as spark. An entire stadium can be ignited with a single shout. Fans can transform the spirit of 11 players with a song. Fire always responds to the word. Players know it. Before a match, what's said in the locker room can be the spark that changes destiny. It's not the same to enter the field hearing, "Play not to lose," as entering hearing, "Go out to win." A word isn't sound, it's direction. Look at Andres Iniesta in the 2010 World Cup final. When he scored the decisive goal, he lifted his shirt with a message, "Dani Jarque always with us." That phrase ignited tears and hearts, remembering that football wasn't just a game, it was fire, memory, and loyalty. A word written on fabric was the spark that illuminated millions. Or think of Muhammad Ali, who before getting in the ring said, "I am the greatest." It wasn't empty arrogance, it was verbal spark that ignited his internal fire and extinguished the confidence of his rivals. His words were blows before the first blow. Even in everyday life we see it. The child who tells themselves, "I'm no good at this," extinguishes their flame before touching the ball. But the one who repeats each day, "I play better," is blowing air over their fire. The difference isn't in talent, it's in the word they dare to pronounce. The unstoppable understands that the tongue is a match. Each word can ignite them or extinguish them. That's why they choose phrases that elevate them, not phrases that sink them. Their words are spark, gasoline, fire. Remember this: a goal can change a match, but a word can change a life. Speak like someone who wants to burn, or your own voice will be the rain that extinguishes your fire. In the next chapter, what a day in the life of a person who has burning desire looks like. Chapter 9. The Immortal Engine. What does the life of someone with burning desire look like? It's not theory, it's not discourse, it's fire in action. And each step we saw up to here becomes a visible mark in their way of living. An unstoppable starts with the restless spark. They don't ignore the discomfort that whispers to them, "There's more for you." That discomfort is a starting signal, and they protect it instead of smothering it. They speak the language of fire. They don't fool themselves with weak desires, whims that are extinguished with the first difficulty. They recognize what truly burns, what returns even though they try to ignore it. They feed their flame with invisible fuel. They know that each thought, each emotion, each habit is wood or ash. They choose to surround themselves with what ignites them, not with what extinguishes them. When the guardian of doubt appears, they don't stop. They know that internal voice isn't defeat but examination, and they cross through the door even if they tremble, because they understand that doubt only guards real treasures. They embrace fire and iron. They don't flee from trials or pain. They let the heat temper them like a sword until they become stronger than before. They breathe discipline like wind. They don't live from fleeting bursts, but from constancy. Each day they blow air over their flame, even though no one applauds, even though no one watches. They shine with the magnetism of the burning. They don't desperately chase what they want. They burn so much that reality curves toward them. People, opportunities, and resources orbit around them like planets around a star. They declare with the word as spark. They don't speak in vain. Their phrases are decrees, fuel, prophecies. What comes from their mouth fans their fire and ignites others. And finally, they live as an immortal engine. Because burning desire stops being a specific achievement and becomes identity. They don't chase goals, they burn with purpose, and when their life ends, the fire continues in the mark they leave, in the flames they ignited, in the generations that burn thanks to their spark. This is the life of someone who ignites their burning desire. They don't live halfway. They don't go out in silence. They don't settle for being embers. They are bonfire. They are torch. They are wildfire. And that wildfire, once ignited, nothing and no one can stop it. If this fire ignited something in you, I want to hear it. Leave me in the comments what spark awakened in your life and how you're going to fan your own burning desire. Subscribe so you don't miss the next audiobooks we prepare, because each one is a different torch for your path. And if you want to keep burning, don't forget to explore the other titles on the channel. There, you'll find more keys, more stories, and more fire that can change your way of seeing the world. If you've made it this far, it means the flame has already touched you. Don't let it go out. Hit that subscribe button right now and join this community of unstoppable people who refuse to live with extinguished fires. Click subscribe, activate the bell, and let's keep burning together. Your fire deserves to grow, and we're here to fan it with you every single day. See you in the next chapter of your unstoppable journey.